Hello everybody, how are you doing? Welcome of course back to Rule of Two Review. So today is another really exciting day because of course we all can't shut up and stop talking about the Nintendo Switch. The fact that Nintendo's new generation console's finally on the market and so many of us have them is obviously so wonderful. We've all been talking about it forever. I haven't shut up about it over the last 2 days, like I said. And through that, I felt like it was time that I don't necessarily give the console a review because I'm really not a reviewer and I just don't feel comfortable with that format of talking about a product. I don't really think I'd be very good at it. I did want to do just the basic obvious thing, which is discuss what I personally feel are some of the pros and some of the cons of the system. Now, first and foremost, I of course should just get out to you guys initially that as a whole, there is no doubt that the Nintendo Switch is awesome. It's blowing my mind. It's such an initially simple concept. I've said this so many times. Just on paper, the idea of you dock it and play on your TV, you pick it up and you take it portable is pretty simple and doesn't really seem that revolutionary or unique or new when you think of it in that context. But once you actually have the unit, once you see how quality the hardware is, and once you have the ability to play it in all of these different ways, you really start to see, yeah, it's a pretty cool piece of tech. I think that Nintendo did something really special. And they've definitely given us something new. Again, it doesn't feel like revolutionary technology just in terms of the concept, but it is new for gaming and it's new for console gaming, and I think that counts for a whole lot. So regardless of the fine details, I think it was just important to let you guys know, on the whole, the system is incredible. I'm absolutely loving what it can do, but we do have to also kind of dissect some of the different facets and the fundamental features of the console to kind of get into the pros and cons aspect and conversation, which I think is important to do. I'm a super huge Nintendo dork. You guys know that. Many of you out there are also super huge Nintendo dorks. So it's easy to get caught up in the bias and the excitement and the fanboyism and just say, it's great, it's perfect, and just stick your head in the sands when it comes to some of the things that maybe aren't that great. And I do get that, and initially I feel that same way. But I think it's very important and smart and healthy to be able to take a step back from that mentality, look at a product or a console in this respect with completely objective eyes and really determine, okay, what is good about it? What does it do very well and incredibly? And what does it maybe do not so well? Or what are the things that maybe didn't come through the way that they should have and could hopefully otherwise be improved upon? So let's start with the good stuff. Let's start with the pros, because that's obviously the more fun stuff. There's a lot of pros, but they're also very simple and obvious pros. Obviously, one of the first pros we think of is the simple fact that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a launch title for this console. The superior and ultimate definitive edition of this game, of course, did also come out on the Wii U, which is also a great game, I hear. But the Switch version of Breath of the Wild really sets a very strong precedent, and it shows what Nintendo is still able to do in terms of software development. We know how great this game is. It very well could be the greatest game ever made, which is a very lofty statement, but I really do think that there could be something to that. So it's easy to say Zelda's one of the pros. However, I'm going to make a separate, specific video just on Zelda and the pros and cons of that, which I'm very excited to do as well. So I'm not going to discuss Zelda any further other than to just acknowledge the fact that, hey, this incredible game experience is what we've all been playing on our Switch since day one, and that's a pretty big deal. But beyond that, let's discuss the actual console and the features that I personally feel are pros. And the first one that I want to talk about is really the concept of what makes the system what it is, and it's the simple portability aspect of the Switch and the tablet itself. The fact that this system does what it's designed to do, to be a console that you can hold in your hand, and it's basically a portable that you can take anywhere in the world and play your games on this beautiful, super vibrant and high definition quality screen that's also a touchscreen, is incredible. And then the fact that you can just put it in that dock, that little tiny dock that's like this big, and within a matter of like 1 second, your whole game experience is on your TV, and you can pick up myriad different control options you have, and you're good to go. I mean, again, we knew what it could do. They showed that to us back in October when they first revealed it. A lot of us, myself included, got to play the system at the preview events in New York, and so we knew it could do this. And again, on paper, it's so obvious, but once you actually can do it yourself, once you've got it in your home, at least this is what I've discovered now that I have it in my home, it's awesome. I love being able to play on my big, huge 50-inch TV with the sound system going or my headphones on or whatever, and just being blown away by how beautiful and fun it is to play my new Nintendo system. But then the fact that I can just pick that shit up off that dock and less than a second, it's in my hand, and I can go into my living room or go wherever, or even go out somewhere else if I wanted to. My younger brother, for example, has been taking his to work and playing Zelda on his breaks. It's awesome. It's really just such a neat idea that works so well. It's something where it could have been this great idea that seemed really great and got us all excited, but in practice or execution, Nintendo maybe might not have made it so seamless and so effective and so fun to do, which some could argue is kind of what the Wii U turned out to be, where the promise and the controller idea was certainly interesting, but a lot of people feel like it didn't quite deliver on what it was trying to do. And I love the system and I love the gamepad, but we all know that for the most part that's true. And Nintendo might have done something to a small degree here with the Switch, but they didn't. They absolutely nailed the fundamental concept, and it really shows that Nintendo knew what their vision was for this thing, and they knew that, okay, if we're gonna do this, we have to do it 100%. We can't half-ass this vision. We can't even do 80 or 90% of this vision. It has to be fully realized and complete before we would ever consider releasing this and making it our whole new business model for the next 5 or 10 years. And I really appreciate and love that Nintendo is the kind of company that understands and recognizes how important that is. And to me, I feel like the Switch, which obviously timed out and just turned off right now, the Switch is really impressive in the sense that they were willing to make it exactly what they knew it needed to be. Something else I think is a huge pro to this console, which I think I've seen has been a little bit divisive among people, which I am shocked. I never would have seen this coming, is the UI. That super slick, super clean, super simple, and painfully easy to use and navigate UI. I love it so much. It is the polar opposite of what the Wii U's was. And even to a degree, it's the polar opposite of what the Xbox One's is now that it's got the Windows 10 integration, because that UI is a fucking disaster. And I love the Xbox One. You guys have heard me say that so many times. I'm not disparaging the console or the games or the controller, but I absolutely hate the way the system is actually set up and how you navigate through it. It's horrible. And the Wii U's wasn't necessarily horrible, but it was just slow and cumbersome and awkward. We all know about how it had to load all the different apps, and it took way too long to move from game to app to Miiverse to eShop to back to game or whatever. And it's one of the reasons why I barely ever use the Miiverse or many other applications on the Wii U other than like Netflix and YouTube, because I didn't like navigating through it. I love the console and I love the individual features and apps, but navigating through it and waiting for the loading and all this stuff was just not cool, man. It wasn't cool, so I didn't do it very often. And the Switch has basically eliminated all of those problems. And you can tell it's something that's built to not only be simple, but also take advantage of the really quality touchscreen. So it's really fun to kind of touch all the simple apps, all these things on the bottom here, and do what you need to do. You've got your icons up top that show what profile you're playing, and once you go in there, you can do everything you need to do to adjust whatever. Holding the home button and the fact that it brings up like the screen brightness and simple things like that. Again, very obvious. I don't think that anyone would even claim that Nintendo's changed the game here or revolutionized UIs. It's just a simple fact that they didn't overly focus on making something so crazy and kooky. It was just like, all it needs to do is serve the basic functions of choosing the games or the applications or the user profiles that you want to use at any given time. And they absolutely just nailed it, and I'm so happy with that. Let's talk about something else that you guys know that I love oh so much when it comes to the Switch, and that is the Joy-Cons. Boy, oh boy, do I love these crazy, wacky, ridiculous little things. You know, when I played the console in New York, I talked so much about how excited I was for these things and how much I really enjoyed playing them. And of course, when the Tokyo event happened the day before, or the 2 days before, I also discussed how I was shocked to see that there's so much going on with the Joy-Cons. All of the advertisement and everything we saw from Nintendo about these controllers, from the October reveal up to the Tokyo thing, was really just something that made it look like, oh, they just created weird controllers that have to work in a portable fashion. It's just part of how the system is set up and what it's supposed to be able to do to operate as a portable and as a home console. And I thought it was nothing more than that, the basic function of portable controllers. And then Nintendo wowed us, or wowed me, and showed all these cool things happening here, what you can do with the different button layouts, the HD rumble, the IR sensor on the bottom. I mean, it was just music to my eyes, you know? And now that, again, I have them and we've all been playing with them, I think they're fantastic. I also think that they're really comfortable. I have to, of course, touch everything now as I talk about it. I really think even in your separate hands, or whether they're on the grip, which is behind me, not here on the table, they're really comfortable. And I get that they're not for everybody. A lot of people have said they're not comfortable, I don't like them, they don't get the job done. A lot of controversy over the placement of the right analog stick, and I get that. But I've found a way to kind of use the middle of my thumb to control it just fine, and I really don't have any issues. It's not the best way to play, of course, but these things are great. I love what Nintendo's done with them, and I love, like I said in my last video, the promise of where these could go in the future. And the last big pro that I want to talk about today, there are actually a lot of little ones, but I'm just hitting a couple of bullet points here, is really just building off of the Joy-Cons thing. It's the controller options, you guys. I absolutely love that there's so many different ways to play this console, and I've been taking advantage of all of them just to try them out over the last 2 days now, over the course of this last weekend. Of course, you got the Joy-Cons. Of course, you got the really super awesome, wonderful Pro Controller, which, as I said many times, is the ideal way to play this console for sure, but I stand by what I've said a few times. If you can't afford it or you can't find it, you definitely have everything you need to enjoy your gaming experience with the Joy-Cons and the grip that come in the package and in the box. That's a really big deal, I think. But the fact that I've been able to play this thing in a myriad different ways over this last weekend has been really fantastic. I mean, the fact I have these right here, and I can sit here right in front of us, and I can just freaking pull up Zelda. And there, I'm just playing Zelda, right? I mean, I love that I can do this. If I had the grip, I'd be playing it this way. I don't have the grip on me right now, so I can just play them separate, and I can run around the world as Link. And it's just the absolute coolest thing. I'm so impressed with that. And it's fun to do. It's just fun to pick these controllers up, to pick the system up, to put it on your TV or whatever, and play it in any different way that you want to. And I've spent a lot of time playing it in portable mode with the Joy-Cons on the side, just like the Wii U gamepad. And I think it's wonderful. I really love everything Nintendo has done with this damn ridiculous, stupid little portable console thing. It's so badass. And to give people so many different ways to choose how they want their gaming experience to go is really important. And it is borderline revolutionary and something that I think other companies in the industry should really take note of, because that could potentially be the future of the larger video game industry in hand if handled right and if seen as successful with the Nintendo Switch, which I think it will be. So, I don't know, you guys. I just love playing this thing. I love playing the game. I only have 2 games. I've got Zelda and Fast, as you can see, Fast Racing Remix. But I love playing the console. I love playing the controllers. I love messing with the UI. I love everything going on with it. And I just am so proud of Nintendo and so happy with it. So that's kind of some of the bigger bullet points that I wanted to hit as far as pros for the console. But everything is not all sunshine and roses when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. Because just like any console, a brand new piece of hardware, a brand new machine from any of the video game console manufacturers is always going to come with a couple of things, some quirks and some negatives and drawbacks. That's the nature of it. It's been that way with every console for all time, all the history of gaming. And so I have to admit that the Nintendo Switch is no different. Do I love it? Absolutely. Do these drawbacks that I'm about to discuss really hinder my experience? No, not really, they don't. But they are important enough to talk about, and I felt like I needed to put as much as I want a Nintendo fanboy out here, like I said in the beginning, you gotta put your objective hat on, and you have to look at this thing critically sometimes. It's a very healthy, smart, mature thing to do. So, I don't want to just sit here and shower this thing with praise, and it's gonna be the same when I talk about Zelda, believe it or not. There are some cons I have to talk about when it comes to Zelda. But you know, when it comes to the Switch, there's a few things that I maybe don't entirely love. So for what it's worth, as much as I've been praising the Joy-Cons and the controller options for the console, these are pretty much almost all entirely revolving around the controllers. And the first thing, this may seem small to some people, but it's kind of been an issue for me, and it's going to be some of the button layout. And I know it seems counterproductive to, oh my god, I love them so much and they're so comfortable, but really both can coexist at the same time. They can be great and comfortable and I can love them, but also have a couple of issues with the button layout. The biggest one for me has been the plus and minus layout, and that's both on the Joy-Cons and on the Pro Controller, actually. When it comes to the Joy-Cons, what I really don't love is, and I really hope this is coming through okay on the camera, it might not be focused, it's the minus button. I don't love where the minus button on the Joy-Cons are specifically, because it's way too close. And I remember talking about this, I think, when I made my vlog video from the New York event too, after I first messed with the Joy-Cons. This is way too close to the analog stick, and it's way too close to the upper corner here of the Joy-Con, of like the shape of the Joy-Con. And it's awkward to hit. And maybe it's because my thumbs or my hands are too big, and I only have like medium-sized hands. I'm not going to tell you guys I have huge hands like everyone says. I have medium-sized hands, but they must be big enough, because a lot of times when I try to reach for this thing, I end up pressing the analog stick, and like when I'm playing Zelda, for example, he ends up just like ducking or walking a weird way. Maybe I'd end up walking off a cliff or something if I wasn't paying attention, just because it's just too close to that analog stick, and it kind of drives me crazy. I'm not going to lie. It's like, why did you guys do that? I get that there's not a whole lot of real estate here to work with, but I feel like something different could have happened. I probably, maybe not, but I almost would have loved it right here between the buttons and this, like where they normally would be on like a regular controller. And speaking of a regular controller, when it comes to the Pro Controller, again, these aren't really huge deals, okay? So don't anyone start freaking throwing pitchforks at me like, oh, you idiot, oh, you don't know the buttons. It's like, it's not a huge deal, but it's a thing. The plus and minus buttons, I kind of have issues with this as well, because it's really the plus and minus buttons in relation to the home and the share button. I always, for some reason, despite my 30 years in gaming and how well I know controllers, I consistently will mess up if I'm pressing the plus or the home button or the minus or the share button. They're so similar in shape and size, and they're so similar in location, and we're so trained to know which area to go to press the start button or the select button or whatever you might need. But because these are all so close to each other, it's like there are so many times where I accidentally hit the home button, or I'm trying to find the button I need, and I'm just not pressing the plus, minus, home, or share when it's the button that I actually want. It's like my brain in the midst of a game or action, it just can't compute because they're so close to each other. And it's a dumb thing that with even more time, you know, it's only been 2 or 3 days, and I'm sure, you know, another couple of weeks down the road, I will be completely trained to the point where it's not an issue. And a lot of you guys are probably not running into this issue, and you think, Rob, you're just being a dumb idiot. You know where the buttons are. Don't press the wrong one. And like, okay, I get that, but when it's still new, it's just a thing I keep running into. You know, it's a small thing, but it's something worth bringing up, because many times I'm trying to hit the plus button or the whatever, and I just hit the wrong freaking button because they're so close and so similar, and I kind of wish that they found a different or better way to place some of those buttons. Let's go back to the Joy-Cons for a minute. The other thing that I talked about as well, apparently I'm just going to keep picking up every controller as I'm talking about it. I've talked about this since the New York thing as well, is the travel for the analog sticks. I like these analog sticks. They are comfortable. They're a little small, but they're big enough to use. They are comfortable. They more than get the job done. Like I said, for playing a 3D game with camera control like Zelda, it definitely works. But the travel is nowhere near what it is for a quality Pro Controller. Like the Pro Controller for the Switch or any other controller, DualShock 4, Xbox One, Wii U Pro Controller. Those are like the legit real deal when it comes to analog sticks. These, they had to make them portable, so they had to compromise quite a few facets, and I totally get that. But when looking at it objectively, it's like, yeah, they don't really move as far as one might expect or want, especially when coming from something like a Pro Controller. And it kind of reminds me of the circle pad on the 3DS, which initially also was very awkward. It's a cool little thing that gets the job done quite well for the 3DS, but it's like, wow, it feels so different, and it doesn't move with the range that you're normally used to with a bigger controller. And unfortunately, the Joy-Cons, even though I do like to use them, I really wish that they had just a little bit more give when it comes to moving left and right. I try to imagine playing like a Smash Brothers game with these, and that's one of the few gaming experiences where it's like, wow, I feel like it would be really hard to play a game like that with these small travel analog sticks. So it's kind of unfortunate that they worked out that way. So I'm going to talk about what my absolute biggest gripe with the entire console is right now. And this is something that I know won't bother a lot of people, but for me, it's become a huge deal for me the last year in gaming, and the fact that this is a problem with the Switch is just dumb. So I think that's why it's probably my biggest gripe. And it's that there's no headphone jack. There is no headphone jack on the Joy-Cons or the grip, and there's no headphone jack on this Pro Controller. And a year or two ago, I probably would never have even cared or even noticed that to make it a con for a console. But the fact that it's become so otherwise an industry standard means that it bothers me. And the fact that, like I was just alluding to, over the last year, I have absolutely fallen in love with wearing my nice gaming headphones when playing a console game, even on my TV. And it's become really hard for me to do that on the Switch. And considering the Switch is built around the ability to be portable, it blows my mind. Of course, the console itself, the screen, does have a headphone jack on it, and that's great. So when playing in portable mode, and you're playing on the screen and not a TV, wonderful, everything is hunky-dory. But if you're playing on your TV, you don't have a very easy and feasible way to use your headphones. What I have to do is I have to sit close to my TV, which to be fair, I do quite often anyway. But I have to sit close to my TV, and I have my nice stereo system there, and one of my front speakers has a headphone jack. So I have to pull my speaker and sit close enough that I can pull it close enough to set it on like a little table next to my chair and plug my headphones into that thing, which is doable, but it's cumbersome and awkward, and it means if I do want to play a little bit more comfortably and laid back like on my couch behind me, I can't do that. I can't use headphones playing the Switch on my TV if I'm sitting on my couch, which is like less than 10 feet away from my TV. And that bothers me because, like I said, I've been so into playing with my headphones and I want to be immersed, especially a game like Zelda that's all about the immersion, baby, and it's all about living in Hyrule and feeling like you're there and hearing the sounds of the environment around you and the wind and the water and the bugs and the animals and all this stuff. And it's like, well, if I want to play with if I want to have those headphones on, I either have to sit close to my TV and pull my damn freaking speaker out to plug my headphones in, which means the cord is going across my lap awkwardly, by the way, or I've got to play in portable mode. And that's really unfortunate. And even with the Wii U, I could do that because you can just use your gamepad and plug it into your gamepad, or if you're using the Pro Controller, I did this quite often, I would just take the gamepad and plug my headphones into the gamepad and just set that next to me on my couch. And I have the same headphone experience, but using my Pro Controller and playing on the TV with my Wii U. The DualShock 4 does it. The Xbox One ridiculously does require an adapter, and that is complete bullshit, but it at least exists as an option. And as far as we know right now, there's no option and there's no planned option. I'm sorry, I believe other than Bluetooth headphones. And I don't have those, and I don't want to have to buy those when I already have a nice Turtle Beach headset for my gaming rigs, for all of gaming. I don't want to have to buy these Bluetooth headsets. Like I'm just not into that yet. Eventually I probably will, but the fact that it's so cumbersome and awkward to do out of the box, and there's no real solution out of the box, you have to buy a separate product, I think is a huge drawback, and it might not bother a lot of people, but it does bother me. Okay, and the last con I have to talk about is kind of a hot button thing right now, which is why I wanted to make it the last thing I wanted to talk about as a con, because it's kind of been doing the rounds on the internet the last day or two, and I agree with it, so that's the other really interesting thing, and that is going to be these lovely little ridiculous bastards right here. So you probably know what I'm going to talk about. To me, I think this, I first noticed this when Rich of Review Tech USA made his video about it. And when I saw he made his little video, which I know it's a little bit controversial, the fact that he made that video and talked about this, but I thought it was great. I loved what he did. I loved what he talked about. I loved why he felt he had to talk about it. And the other reason I loved it is because the problem he discussed is exactly what I went through when I first opened my Switch and got all these controllers in my hands. So, you probably have heard there's problems getting these things on and off of the Joy-Cons here. People have struggled with these and run into some issues, and I did as well. The biggest issue is that these things, A, it's easy to put them on the wrong Joy-Con, and B, they get freaking stuck so badly, and apparently they're even supposed to do this, and I think it's absolutely terrible. Okay, so I'm going to get into this here, and I'm going to make it noted that this is another thing, even though it's my least favorite thing about this whole console, it's another thing that isn't the hugest deal because I can survive without really using these, and it's no big deal. Also, Nintendo may fix the problem, who knows. But the big thing here is when you put these things on, I'll show you here. Everyone's talked about this and showed this. To know which one you're going to put it on, you got to look and see there's like a little plus or minus right here that's supposed to match up with the plus or minus button on the Joy-Cons. And that makes sense. That's actually a fine indicator to use. But something that even Rich pointed out is they're actually really hard to see. And I never noticed them in New York, and I didn't notice them when I first pulled them out of the box either. And obviously it's like, okay, you could pull out the booklet and the instructions and open that whole big bastard up and find out where it shows what to do, but most people aren't going to do that, and it shouldn't. This is something so simple, it shouldn't even require that. And I like what Rich pointed out, that they could have done something as simple as just made these things white or a different color so that they stand out, and it would have made I guarantee it'd make all the difference, because you would instantly notice, oh, there's a big plus here, there's a big minus here, so I know where to match them up. I didn't notice that. I mean, and I consider myself a smart person. My eyes are obviously only okay, and I am colorblind, but I'm a smart person with decent vision, and I've been playing games for a long time. So you would think that I would know to look for something like that, but I didn't. And the first thing I did is I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put the wrist strap on here and just see what they feel like. And I put one of these on the wrong one, and I couldn't get that sucker off to save my life. And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my, and I noticed what the problem was once I couldn't get it off. I was like, oh God, there's an indicator. I put this on the wrong one. Damn it, that sucks. And I couldn't get it off. And I was seriously like having a heart attack. I was like, I just bought my Switch and I'm not going to be able to use it. It's going to be a waste of $300 and I can't use the Joy-Cons. What the fuck? Oh my God. And luckily, I was like, screw it. Gotta manhandle it. And I used all my strength and I was able to get it off. And it didn't do any damage, so crisis averted. But it's a problem that it's so just not obvious kind of what to do with these things, even though it's such a simple little device. I think that they work too hard to hide the fact that there's an indicator on the top of these, and it's obviously created problems. To me, I was never going to bring it up, honestly, maybe for like a funny anecdotal story, but I was never going to otherwise bring it up as an issue until I started to learn through Rich's video and many other videos and articles that a lot of people have run into that. That's when I realized, oh, okay, this is a significant problem. It wasn't just me being a dumbass. It was a little bit of that, but it's also an issue that everyone's running into. And so I felt less like a dumbass, and I realized it's a big problem worth talking about. The other issue is, even when you put these on, the correct one, which I'm never going to do again, by the way, because I've even tried it since realizing which one goes on which Joy-Con. But once you put these on, and this is something else that I've had confirmed through articles and videos that everyone has realized, this is just the way it works, they also are really hard to get on and off. Like, they're designed for some reason to stick really hard on there. And I feel like the reason is probably to make sure they don't fly off and hit kids in the face and land in, cups of water or whatever. And it's like, okay, I get that. That's a good thing to do. They created this lock down the bottom here as well. But the way these things are designed to slide on and then really be forcefully pushed off is a pain in the ass. And I don't like it. Not at all. Nintendo, I think that was a huge mistake. I don't think you needed to go that extra step to make them so chunky to get on and off. You feel like you're going to break it. And there's not a lot of places on the Joy-Con to like comfortably grab it where you're not also pressing a button or pressing down on the analog stick. So it's like you want to kind of grab this where there's no button and try to like hold it and also slide these things off because you have to do it so forcefully. And it's just uncomfortable to do. Not only are you pushing so hard, you're worried you're going to break the thing. It's uncomfortable to find a place to hold it where you're not messing up your buttons and your analog stick to do it. It's just kind of a nightmare. Like, a lot of people, again, pros and cons are an opinion-based thing, so a lot of you guys might not agree with mine, but this is the thing that, to me, is a problem, and I don't like it, and it's too bad because I think these things are really comfortable, and I like what they accomplish in acting as something that makes the controllers bigger in your hand and a better way to press your SL and SR buttons. I think that it's really cool, but they are not well designed, and the system that Nintendo put in place put these things on and off is disastrous, and I really wish it wasn't that way. I hate the fact that a negative this big exists, but it does, and a lot of people might not care, have issues with forcing these things on and off, and that's fine, but I hate it. And this is my list of pros and cons, and to me that's one of the biggest cons, and obviously it's an issue because a lot of people have talked about it, and a handful of articles have been written about it. So apparently a lot of people are running into this issue, and when it's something of that high of a number, that's a problem, and I hope that Nintendo addresses it soon. And I hope that they maybe just release a newer version of these that slide on and off easier. It's like, I'll buy them if they're the same $20 that they are right now. I'll buy a new set if Nintendo outwardly admits, okay, we designed these things maybe the wrong way, and we have a way to fix it, so here's our new, wrist straps version 2. That actually solve this problem and you won't have this issue anymore. I would really love it if that was the case, but I don't know if we'll see Nintendo do that. I guess only time will tell. But for now, those are the big cons for me. So that's it. Those are the pros and cons initially of the console that I've run into as a huge Nintendo fan and someone who does love the system. Again, there's probably a bunch of little minor, small things that could fit into the pro category that I didn't talk about and could fit into the con category that I didn't talk about. Stuff like the battery life on the tablet controller and things like that. But, you know, I didn't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty. Obviously, this was going to be a long video anyway. Just talking about 4 or 5 pros and cons each is making like a 20-minute video because that's just what I do, and you guys know that. But like I said, in ending this, one final reminder, holy freaking cow, do I love the Nintendo Switch. This is next generation like I want next generation to be. To me, next generation isn't 4K, 8K, a million K resolutions, graphics, this and that and the other. That's part of what makes the next generation kind of happen and feel revolutionary, but nowadays, it's way less that. It's more different ways to play, different functionality out of the hardware, different controllers, and a unique way to interact and interface with your console and your game experiences. That's what next generation has become to me over the course of this last decade, probably. It's what Nintendo has showed that they're willing to try and do time and time again, mostly successfully. Every once in a while, they will not succeed, and that's totally okay. No one is perfect. But with the Switch, they nailed it. And I'm so happy with this experience, and I'm so happy with this console and this machine. I just love everything about it. I love looking at this little tablet controller. Just looking at it gets me excited. It's like I want to play with it. I want to touch it. I just love it so much. So, to me, Nintendo has knocked it out of the park. I'm not going to grade or rate the console. I'm just going to tell you guys that I love it. There are some drawbacks, mostly controller related like I talked about, but the cool thing about Nintendo is even when the controller aspects are some of the biggest negatives, they're also some of the biggest strengths. And that's something that usually only a company like Nintendo can achieve, and it makes me really happy to see. Nintendo, I think, has knocked it out of the park. Most people seem to be loving the console, loving what's happening with it right now. A lot of positivity seen for the future of Nintendo and the future of the Switch. And we know that they're selling really well right now as well. So if the next couple of months worth of games, and then of course E3 is a total freaking home run, just look out, man, because the Switch is going to be a super big, serious hit, which I already expect it to be. So I think that's it for now, guys. Those are my initial thoughts and pros and cons for the Nintendo Switch as a console, as a piece of hardware, and as Nintendo's new next-generation machine. What do you guys think about the things that I discussed? What are the things that you like about the console? What are the things that you don't like about the console? And that's it, man. So thanks, of course, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review. Thanks for checking out the pros and cons of the Switch. Discuss your pros and cons as well below, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.